Hello and welcome to Forever Great in Conversation. We are in episode 5. Wow, 5 of season 2. Thank you so much to everyone who supported the last conversation with the wonderfully inspiring Alan Mahan of Brewgooder. You can still watch it on YouTube, of course, and you can download the podcast. But today, it's all about someone who I've been following for some time. We've never actually met, but it feels like we're best pals. It's the wonderful Alison Edgar MBE. But before we go to Alison to have the chat, let's give you a very quick overview of who Alison is. So Alison is known as the Entrepreneur's Godmother, as a mentor, boardroom advisor, successful businesswoman, and most important of all, I would say, as a mother. She's advised number 10 on startups and guided multiple entrepreneurs, including Dragon Den winners and the Apprentice champion Alana Spencer. Alison is a 2 times best-selling author and was awarded the MBE for services to entrepreneurship and small business in October 2020. Massive congratulations. The Smash It, The Art of Getting What You Want, which is here, is Alison's second book following Secrets of Successful Sales. A W. Smith top 10 bestseller, international Amazon #1, and voted one of the 10 business books, or best business books, I should say, written by women from The Independent. What a story, Ali. What an intro. It's lovely to have you.
Oh, do you know what? I'm absolutely buzzing, Frank. I've been desperate for our podcast because I watch them. My favourite one I really love Sir Tom Hunter, so I watch that one really avidly. So I've been absolutely desperate to take part. So thank you so much for having me. And like when somebody does that introduction, because sometimes you know what it's like, you just get on with your day to day. And it's not until somebody reflects on what you've done, you go, oh, is that me? Have I done all these things that wee lassie for the top of the hill in Clydebank? So thank you so much.
You have.
Oh, I really have. Didn't even have to blag them. I got them. It's done.
And I love that you mentioned the wee lassie from Clydebank. I'll hopefully we'll get to touch on that as we go through the conversation. So it's great to have you, Alison. Where are you today? Where are you in the world?
So I actually live just outside Bath, so Chippenham, Wiltshire. So it's about 20 minutes from Bath, between Bath and Swindon. So yeah, that's where I am.
What's the weather? Is it as bright and as sunny as the top that you're wearing? Is it lovely down there today?
I wish I could say that, but it does feel a wee bit like Glasgow. It's a wee bit grey and overcast. It's like, we were talking about the weather before we started, weren't we? So it's not quite, but I'm hopeful, I'm wearing my yellow jacket, that the sun will be out this afternoon.
Brilliant. Well, fingers crossed. So it's been some year, hasn't it? It's been some year for the world. It's been some year for everyone, countries, individuals, civilizations, businesses, and I'm sure it's been some year for yourself, Alison. What has the last year been like for you? How have you dealt with the challenges that we've all faced?
So, you know, I think at the start, like everyone, it was just panic, wasn't it? What on earth? I think before panic set in, I think it was denial. This will never take off, this COVID thing. Do you know what? I think I'm quite optimistic. So I was under the belief that it was just, you know, a load of tosh, that it wasn't going to happen, that everything would be okay. And then, of course, we had the 18 months that we had. And I think one of the things that I've learned through life, really, and experience, is really to practice what I teach and focus on the things you can control, not the things you can. And it's really interesting because my husband and I are very, very different, and that was something that he tried to teach me for, like, you know, in my 20s, and it probably took me to my 30s or 40s to actually be able to really focus on that. And I think it gave me more patience is another thing. Like, you know, you can't control it, so just get on and do the things you can. And I think revenue wise, we fit, because I've got a team that work for me, Frank, and when everybody was furloughing their team, I decided not to do that because I thought it wasn't going to be great for their structure and their mental health because they're young. So I had to find revenue. I had to do things to bring in money. So I decided to do webinars. Again, I suppose like the same as everybody else at that time. But instead of doing free webinars, I was charging tickets. So I did low cost tickets, but we had fairly high volume. So that kept my team working, kept their structure. And that was really, really important to me. But the other thing it did give me was time to write the second book. So Smash It was actually, it was kind of conceived before COVID, but I probably, had that not have happened, it probably have dragged on a wee bit longer. But one thing that I was given as a blessing was time. And also you know, I know you're going to be talking about the book later, but I'm dyslexic, so writing for me is always a challenge. So again, my team are all quite young, and I encourage my team to leave me. I know that sounds a wee bit odd, but I believe that we're a small business, and there's a whole big world out there. So my team have left and have gone on to live in Canada, Australia, Portugal, you know, and still, like, I get more WhatsApps from them than I do my kids, to be honest, Frank. You know, it's like they really appreciate it. Sometimes your kids don't appreciate the things, you know, that you do for them.
Absolutely.
And one of the girls, Kaya, who did help me with Secrets of Successful Sales, she was in Portugal and came back to the UK at the announcement of lockdown, and she didn't have a job. She didn't know what was going on. I went, right, this is it. Come on, come back. Let's just put this book in the bag. This is the book that will change people's lives. Let's put our head down and get it done. So that's what we did, and it's been a great use of time, and hopefully it will benefit other people.
Yeah, well, listen, it sounds like it's been a challenging year. Of course, it has been from a health perspective for just watching what's happening out there, and if anyone we know has been impacted by this. But what it feels like from you, though, Alison, is you obviously done some pivoting with getting some digital stuff out there, but actually you have been awarded an MBE last year, which must have been one of the most incredible things to have received. I mean, very quickly, what does that process look like? Do you receive a letter or do you get a text nowadays? How does that work?
Well, actually, funnily enough, Frank, it does come back to Kaya that came back from Portugal, because what was happening was we were sitting, I think it was after lockdown 1 and into lockdown 2. So I think it was the July, you know, when you were allowed to be in the gardens with other people.
Yeah.
And when we started doing the work in the book, we were doing it all remotely by Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And it was the first day we were allowed back in the garden. And I'm easily distracted, right? You know, if anybody reads the book, I talk about disc behaviors. I'm like a high yellow. Oh, what was that? A butterfly? Oh, let me go and try and chase that. And we're sitting there, and Kaya was talking to me about, you know, part of the book. And I was thinking, oh, my attention span's gone at this point. I thought, I'll just check my emails. And this email comes in from the Cabinet Office. Now, that's not unusual, Frank, honestly, because again, I deal with government. So like getting an email from the Cabinet Office was, you know, oh, here we go. I wonder what this is. But when I opened it, I started to cry. I just literally broke down crying, and Kaya's sitting opposite me, and she says, Alison, what's wrong? And I talk about my Auntie June. My mum passed away in 2011. So she's well passed away, but she's from a family of 12, again, a big Clydebank family of 12. And what happens is when your parent passes away, you get one of the aunties comes in and replaces them. So like Auntie June's like the new mum, she's the surrogate. And a guy said, has something happened to Auntie June? And I went, no, I need you to look at this email. I don't know if I'm reading it right. But it says in their top secret, you're not allowed to tell MD apart from
right.
You're allowed to tell your press officer, right? But you're not allowed to tell MD else. And I said, are you the press officer? She went, oh, I am the press officer. What is it? What's the email? And I said, I think I'm an MBE. I think the Queen's like giving me an honour. And she went, aye, I knew that a couple of weeks ago. She goes, the man for the palace phoned me to double check the details were right. Wow. And I went, well, how did this happen? She goes, oh, I nominated you 3 years ago. And I'm like, so you never know the impact, you know,
you're having on people.
It's really interesting that if you do your best, you know, be caring, be thoughtful for other people. You just never know how it's going to come back and hit you, you know, and that was the thing.
Well, what an honour that is, and well done. And I love the fact that it was under the small business category as well, entrepreneurship, which I know.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm so passionate. I mean, literally, I give a lot of my time back to the startup community, as you know, like with Entrepreneurial Spark, and you know that was going around, and Enterprise Nation, Small Business Saturday. You know, none of those things are, you know, no money traded for any of that work that I do.
It should give back, isn't it?
I give back, and that's why it's so lovely that I'm so passionate about small business, and I'm passionate about entrepreneurship, that to be recognised for it is just
well done and well deserved. Let's talk about Smash It. So I only managed to get it the other day because obviously it's a big demand, this book. So I got it through the post the other day, and I've started to get through with the highlighter as you do, and capture some bits and bobs. I'm obviously going to take the time to read it in detail. Tell us, you mentioned that it was a concept, or the inception was prior to COVID, Alison, but what was it that when did you have that moment that you thought, right, I'm definitely going to do another book, and the kind of content and theme of it? How did you arrive at that space?
I believe sometimes things call you, Frank. And like the first book called me to write it because, you know, at the time there used to be government funding, growth vouchers, growth accelerator. You probably remember all those things. And the government pulled that, and that was 2015, I think. And I thought, again, coming back to that give back, how do I help the people that need me most? And again, you know, from your background, it's the startups. They don't know how to sell. And they don't have any money. How do you help people that don't have any money? Well, you write a book and charge them 10 quid, and everything goes in that book.
Yeah.
And that's where your give back is. So you spend a year of your life or whatever it is, but you know, they can access that. But the weirdest thing happened, Frank, then this is how the second book called me, because the book, first one is called Secrets of Successful Sales. So who reads that book? People in business or people in sales, right? It's not like, oh, I'm looking for a good, you know, chick lit to read at the weekend. I'll buy this book. You don't, you buy it in business. But the weirdest thing was happening. I was getting DMs from people going, oh, I love
You mentioned that in the book, actually. You
I
talk
know,
about
and they're like,
that.
oh, I love this book. And then I saved money when I bought my house. Oh, when I sold my car, I made more money from it. Oh, I'm getting on better with my family now. And I'm thinking, oh no, I need to help more people because they won't pick that book up. I have to evolve what I've done and teach people how to get that in their real life. And I was asked to do a TEDx. So I did a TEDx a few years ago. And I couldn't do it about sales because I knew that nobody would watch it because everybody hates sales. You know what I mean? I thought, how do I do this? So the TEDx is actually called The Art of Getting What You Want. And, you know, it's interesting because it's obviously I talk about goal setting, smashing it. And one of my goals for the TEDx would be go on the big TED site because they only select a few to go on the TED site. And I hadn't really followed that up. And I found out the other day it's on the TED site. I'm like, oh, I smashed a goal and I didn't even know it.
You need to check that out. You need to get it shared.
I know. So that's where like that came from, a combination between people using the last book and the TEDx. And then I just took it from there to help more people in personal development. And I think the other thing, you know, I know you're going to touch on this, but like when I was doing the research for the book, that according to Inc. magazine, only 8% of people hit their goals. 92% of people don't hit their goals.
So that was one of the first bits that I highlighted, and I thought, if that's not going to drive content on a book where I start like that, but what obviously the book will touch on your methodology, or your concepts and theories and activities that people do to overcome that, and be one of the 8%, as you say. But what do you think it is about the 90% that struggle, Alison, based on your experience, and what is it that people don't have or the struggle to have?
Things, and I think this is really interesting, that how can you hit a goal if you don't set it? You know, it's all right to think, oh, I wish I had that house in Newton Mearns, or, you know, do you know what I mean? But that's not setting a goal. That's just having a wee thought, oh, I want that 4-bed. And
I love that thread there. Let's just talk about that whole thought, having a thought or having a goal. I like that.
I think that's the difference, you know. And again, I think a lot of people live with regret. I mean, I can remember, you know, I went traveling, as we talked about before. I was away for like 6 years, and I was in Australia, I was in Canada. Loads of people talk about traveling. And I think, you know, my mum and dad, you know, my dad was from Postle Park, my mum was from Dalmuir. So, you know, Clydebank, I'm born and bred. And my mum always said, oh yeah, we could have gone to Canada, or we could have had the pound ticket to Australia, or whatever it was. I wish we'd done that. I don't ever want to live my life with regret. And I think a lot of people just don't take the action. So I think they don't set goals, they don't take action, they don't have a plan. I think that's the thing. I mean, in the book, I talk about the smash it method. I feel that if people have got a method to follow, that they're more likely to achieve it. And they don't know why they want it. You know, as you go through the book, you'll see that there's things that didn't happen in my life, and it was why I wanted it wasn't strong enough. And I think that's when you've got that, you know, the plan, the why, and the structure and the direction, then you can smash it and get what you want. I'm notorious for getting what I want, Frank. No better person to write that book than me.
Well, but exactly, that's it. And what part of the book, Alison, do you feel It is, I mean, it's all I'd imagine, really, and I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth right into it. But what's the part of the book that you feel, get to that part? What's the part that you feel, get to that part? Because that's the part where you'll have the epiphany, or you'll have the moment of realization that that's it, I've got it. Is there a part?
I think there's so many parts. Honestly, I don't mean this badly, but
Yeah, that's great.
It is a great book. And I'm not just saying that from me, but when you write a book like that, it's really interesting because you think it's great, but what are other people going to think? And a few people had pre-read it in advance, and they're like, oh my God, it does really feel like you have created the meaning of life. But I think the epiphany, and one of my favorite bits, is quite near the start, and it's when I explain that life is like Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway. And again, what I tend to do is I tend to look at the tried and tested things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Because there's Maslow's, and loads of people, again, I only discovered, I know it sounds really random, but I only really discovered Maslow's when I was writing the book, because I'm not academic, I'm more kind of practical. So I had to think, well, why do I think like that? Why do other people, why do these 8% smash it? What does that mean? Like, what is success? I'm very inquisitive, I think is how I would describe it. But then I don't get Maslow's, like loads of the theories. I don't get the Eisenhower quadrant. There's loads of things I don't understand. So I translate them into things that I do understand. And I think that's why people love what I say, because they understand the translation.
You make concepts or theories from an academic level potentially become more realistic for people that potentially look at the academic world and think, oh, it's not for me, I don't understand it. And you make it real. You bring it to life through practical activities and examples.
And that's where I think, like, I don't like potatoes, Frank, right? I really don't like them. I feel like having been brought up on potatoes, they're bland, they're dull, and they're boring. But I think I'm in the minority. Everybody loves potatoes.
I love it, especially in Ayrshire tatty, Alison.
I hate it. It's the Ayrshire ones I hate the most. I don't like the boiled with the skin on, honestly. But again, you can please some of the people some of the time. You can't please all the people all the time. If somebody wants an academic book, don't buy mine, because you're not going to like it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't like potatoes. Yeah. So I think that for me, the epiphany was when I thought, well, hang on. And it was very, very pandemic. You know, the book was written in the pandemic. How does that affect where we sit on Maslow's? And again, if you think about Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway, he was at the top, he was at the pinnacle, he had everything, the great job, the great relationship, the great, the give back and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at, obviously, no spoiler, but the plane crashed. And that's what happened in the pandemic. Loads of people lost, their loved ones, their family, they were back down to, struggling to meet their needs. Was there money on the table? Could they even get dressed and put on their clothes? Could they have all those things? And we look at, Tom and Wilson, that's like his friendship group, and he's confident. So when you look at the levels of Maslow, that's actually his love and belonging was Wilson the volleyball. And when we look at why he wanted to get off that island, he wanted to get off that island to deliver that one last parcel. That's his, epitome moment of what he was living for. And that's why having that really strong why. So I believe that I translated life into Tom Hanks' movie. I don't know if that was the meaning behind it when they made the movie, but for me, that's
what that was your takeaway.
I think if you can think about your life as like Tom Hanks in Castaway, then it helps you work out where you're going with it.
Yeah, I think of worse things to think about, couldn't there be? It's a nice analogy or example around how some of the book can relate to that story. What for me about the smash it concept and that whole really striving towards creating goals and things. I mean, when did you realise in your life, Alison, you were that kind of person? When did you realise or have that did you always have that intrinsic sense of getting things, or was it something you had to be taught?
I think I learned quite early doors that jumping up and down and shouting to get your own way doesn't really always work. So I want that. I found other ways of making it happen. And I think, like at school, I really struggled at, because of the dyslexia. So I started working in the Cameron House at Hargate, not the posh one at Loch Lomond, the wee one at the top of, Hargate Cross. And I learned that to actually make things happen, this is what I talk about in the book, there's the me thing and the we thing. So there's things that you can control, you know, yourself, your own goals, your personal goals, and then things that involve other people. And I've always built really strong relationships. I'd say that networking is a great strength, people is a great strength. Grown my own, I mean, it's really interesting because we talk about personal branding. Like I've always had a strong sense of personal brand. People would know who Alison Edgar was, and they would say positive things about me. And I think that's something I developed through the business. But I think, again, you know, I don't think I've changed. That what you see with me is what you get. I'm still pals with my pals for school. You know, I've got a really strong friendship group. So I think that's I've always known what my strengths are, known what my weaknesses are. And, you know, I think the moment, oh my God, I don't know how real I'm going to be, right? I'm going to tell you a wee story, right? I think the changing point for me was I was in like a teenage relationship in Clydebank, and it all kind of broke down after like several years, and I got barred from one of the pubs. It wasn't me. Honestly, Frank, the story of everybody's like, it wasn't me. I didn't do that. But it really wasn't me. Something happened in a pub and I got barred. And I thought that I can either sit here and whinge about being barred or I
find a new pub to go to.
Or I find it, well, and it wasn't even a new pub because there was so much, you know, going on at that time. It was a new town. So like I left Clydebank and I went to work in Bridge of Allen. And then from Bridge of Allen, I wanted to move things a wee bit further. So I moved to Cape Town. And again, a lot of people talk the talk and they would find a new pub. Do you know what I mean? And that would still just bring back those memories. For me, that was one of the catalysts in my life that I thought, you know what? I'm going to make change here. And, you know, and I can remember another friend of mine going, everybody says they're going to leave and they never. And actually, I'm going to buck that statistic. I'm going to buck that trend and I'm going to go for it. And what's the worst that can happen? And I've got a wee story, which isn't in this book, it's in the other one. And people say like, what's the pivotal, you know, things, who's changed your life? What, you know, name a moment when something really clicked of how you focus and be positive. And I can remember, so I turned 21 on the plane. So I get to Glasgow airport, right? And it was in the days when it was before the scanner and the wee man checked your boarding pass. And I was gutted, right? So I was 20 years old. I'm leaving my family, I'm leaving my friends. Again, things in Clydebank hadn't always worked out the way that I wanted them to. I was leaving my dog and I was gutted, and I get to the airport and you know that way you're bursting, you're crying, you're greeting, the mascara's running down your face and you're just like, oh. And the man said, where are you off to, hen? I said, moving to Cape Town. And again, I'm trying to hold it even now I'm getting emotional. I'm trying to hold it together. And he went, well, I'll tell you one thing, hen. That's Cape Town's gain and Glasgow's loss. And I went, damn tooting it is. I'm in a situation where I'm thinking, oh my God, like even like if you lose a sale or, you know, something breaks down or, you know, something happens, you know, and you just think, well, do you know what? Sod that. That's Cape Town's gain and Glasgow's loss. So I'm going to live my life by that man.
But I just love, so see those little moments in your life, I just think they're incredibly magical, that one encounter with that guy that you've probably never ever met in your life again had such a kind of profound impact.
I'm 53 now, so that's 33 years ago. You know, I don't even know if that man's still on the planet, but you know, and that's, you know, you never know who's watching, you never know who's listening.
That's powerful. I'm so glad you shared that because I love that. That's Cape Town's gain. What was it? Cape Town's gain and
Glasgow's loss.
And Glasgow's loss. Fantastic. Round of applause for that wee fella.
For that wee man at the airport, and he was only doing his job. Do you know what I mean? He was only checking the boarding pass.
What I also love about it quickly, Alison, is the fact that it's interactive, so you can download an app. You've got an associated app that takes people through, and there's an abundance of places for people to capture their notes. So I'm absolutely a note taker. I love a highlight and I love to capture some stuff. And that's what I do love about the book. There's plenty of spaces for people to jot down their ideas, their superpowers, their vulnerabilities, and so on and so forth. Obviously, their goals using the SMART, which is fairly well known. Where can they buy it? So anyone that's watching and listening, where can they buy Smash It?
Anywhere really. I mean, it's on Amazon, or again, I'm a big fan of small businesses. If you are an independent retailer, then they can order it in. You just ask them, they'll find it on their system with a number, or WH Smith's or Waterstones. If it's not in store, they will definitely order it for you.
Great.
Well, it's available everywhere, but like on the subject of the app, the reason that I created the app was to help change that statistic, the 8%, because can you imagine, right? As you read about the book, you know what it's like. A lot of the messaging is subliminal, and a lot of the magic happens when you've not got the book in your hands, because you'll be thinking, like, say you're out for a wee run or a cycle, or
right.
you know, walking down the Clyde, or you know, you're wherever you are, and you think, you know what? Oh, see, when I was wee, I used to rollerblade. I was brilliant at rollerblading. I want to take up fitness. I'm going to go back to rollerblading. And that's where, if you're going to have your phone in your hand, if you've got your app there, you go, right, my goal is to take up rollerblading within the next 3 months, and then I'm going to go online and get myself a pair of rollerblades. And that's how you start to smash it, is put those wee goals in place, make them smart, and make it happen. And that will sometimes happen when you've not got the book with you.
Yes, I love that. I love that idea. I love it. So it's on you.
It's on you, and that's where, you know, I've invested in the app. The app is free for people to download, but I've invested time and money to create that, because I really genuinely want to swap that statistic higher than 8% of people that hit their goals.
Yeah, so when Smash It 4 or 2 or 8 comes out, you can say that 8% is now up to 25.
Yeah. Woohoo, I'd love that. I mean, but marginal gains, I would even you know, 10 or 12% would be good.
I am with you. Let's talk about quickly, Alison, time just flies past me of these chats. Talk quickly about sales. So obviously you are the entrepreneurial, you're known as the Entrepreneurs Godmother in terms of sales, helping, can you share all that skill set, knowledge and insight you have in sales? What is the overarching, I know we could have a whole session and conversation on sales, but what is the big thing that people get wrong? And so it's a kind of two-sided question. What is it that people get wrong, and what is the biggest tip that you tend to give people from a sales point of view?
So I believe to be good at anything, you have to love it, right? And the thing with it is, sales comes with rejection, and people don't like rejection. So, you know, I talk about in the first book, how did I get good at golf? I used to play golf for the West of Scotland, and when I started, I was rubbish, right? I was like, oh God, I just got dragged along. And I took myself on the practice fairway. I hit the ball, picked it up. I was like a human boomerang until I got good at it. And again, the better you get, the more you love it. So I think it's, first of all, our brain is there to protect us. It doesn't want us to get hurt, doesn't want us to get rejected. So in business, loads of people just hide behind their marketing, because apart from the odd negative comment, marketing never rejects you. Do you know what I mean? So I think you need to learn it. It is a process.
Yeah.
And I think it's like manufacturing. If you follow the process, you will sell more. And again, like quality control, you're not going to sell to everyone like potatoes. No, you're not going to buy. Everyone's going to buy what you're selling. But I think the biggest mistake I see in sales is people sell too soon. You know, the secret of selling is asking brilliant questions. You know, so what are the challenges in your business? What have you tried before? If you've got a current supplier, how likely would you be to change? And why would that? If you had an ideal supplier, what would the main things that you would want them to do? And, you know, how does that work? It's open questions. It's, you know,
that inquiry.
All that. Think like you know, when kids are born, they start to speak when they're about, you know, again, obviously girls are slightly earlier than boys usually, but you know, they'll go, why? You've got young kids, Frank, you know, it's not that long ago. Why? And we gain more knowledge and more information, and information is power. But when we go to school, like on a ratio of 1 to 30, the kids are like, can you just be polite? Can I? Will I? Would you like me to send an email to nevergonnahappen.com? And like we fob off. Whereas it's really starting to think again like a 3-year-old. That's the secret. Ask good questions, listen to the answer, dig in further, and actually find what your customer needs. And if you can deliver what your customer needs, sell it. And if you can, don't bullshit them, walk away and find another customer that is going to
you can do something for.
That, you know, don't, because if you sell to the wrong customer, it's only going to come and bite you in the ass anyway. So don't, you know, be really good at asking great questions and then match what you sell. And you know, everything I talk about is when it's delivered correctly. Sales and customer service is exactly the same thing. I don't see a line between the two at all. Mm-hmm. In fact, I can prove there's no line, but that's a subject for another day.
I love that though as well. That there's real synergy between them. In fact, they're practically merged.
They're the same. In fact, I talk about the Spice Girls. When it's delivered correctly, sales and customer service, to become one.
I love this. I loved the Space Girls when I was younger. Loved them. I loved Jerry. Jerry was my favourite. So great. So it's all about what I'm getting from that. It's all about potentially selling too soon, but that's maybe because you've not asked enough questions and you've not really put yourself out there to do the research to ask, but also this whole love it piece, Alison. Love what you do, because there's that whole rejection. That you're right. I mean, in business, I know what it's like. I try often to say to clients that I work with, I don't take it personally if you don't like something I've designed. I don't take it personally if you don't like something that I've wrote. But there's always that wee bit in you that's like, ugh. But it makes you stronger because you move on to the next day and you move on. You keep going.
You know, Frank, I know that you're a big fan of growth mindset, but I think that's the sign of a growth mindset. You know, you're take what they've said. They've said, actually, do you know what? I don't like that. And you're like, actually, that's 3 people that have told me that they don't like that. And you either find 3 people that do love it, or actually there's something wrong with the concept, and then tweak it. And I'm forever, like, when it came to my, like, obviously the core business is sales training or speaking at events and stuff. And I'm like, I'm scared to death when I get the feedback, because
what's it saying?
Then I go, right, okay, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for taking time to give me that. Right, what can I learn from that? And I think that is, you know, I know how much of a fan you are of the growth mindset, and I think that's growth mindset is one of the elements to life. To smash it, you have to have non-negotiable a growth mindset. Literally.
I love how smash it's part of your just normal vocabulary now, Alison. So time's running out. Very quick question before we get to the 3 final questions that we do with every guest that comes on for every great conversation. And I feel when I say what's next for you is a bit like, come on, Frank, I've just launched this freaking book. So what's next is getting this book, I suppose, out there as much as you can. But is there anything you can share with us that you're working on, Alison, next? Albeit the priority is the book right now, but what is next for you and the team?
So the team and I, literally, so we have been doing some really cool stuff in the speaking space. So Discovery Channel, we landed working with the European Commission. We didn't get to deliver it. They paid us though, so they're still in our client base, so it's good. We can do it again. And I've again just really working. I was at a pitch yesterday that I can't talk about because I'm on an NDA, but if that comes in, that takes things on to another level.
Wow,
the team will continue to just grow and support me, and I think more of the same. More in the media. Again, I've already done some stuff on like BBC. I go Glasgow, I think, with Gina on one of the local radio stations in Scotland.
Glasgow, that's doing
yeah, that was really good. And I love that. I love anything media based is something that's on my goal list. It's on my vision board, Frank. So watch
vision board's in here.
Vision board.
So excellent. There's a lot going on, and I think what I love about you, Alison, and I think what people should really get from this conversation, because it comes across in abundance, and that's why I followed you for some time, is that your brand is positive, it's forward thinking, it's energetic, but I get a real sense from you. What I love about you is the doing it. So you're doing stuff, and I think for me that's what I love about you, is that kind of doing it smashing it mentality. Really, let's get it right. That smash it mentality, and I think it's really powerful, and I think you should be really, really chuffed with what you've achieved, because I feel it, and I think it oozes out you. So well done, that lassie from Clydebank.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting because so many people talk the talk, Frank. Oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do the next thing, and they don't do it themselves. Why would you want to learn from somebody that's not walking the walk? If you want to learn from somebody, and this is the thing, like, I don't have like a coaching diploma, I don't have this, I don't have that. All I can teach people is what I've done myself and what I do every single day. That's all I can teach. So, you know, I teach to walk the walk, not talk the talk.
And it's that authenticity as well that's really important, isn't it? So let's get to the final 3 questions. This is it. We ask every guest these questions because it's good to get a sense of where are people with these 3 things in terms of a similarity, if there's any similarities. Question number 1, Alison, when you're in Scotland, your homeland, where's the place you love to go and visit?
Or the top of the hill. I mean, that sounds really corny, but I love going back. Every time I go back, and I like to walk when I'm in Clydebank. I love Clydebank, right? Literally, I get quite emotional because my mum's family are obviously still there, but there'll never be a trip that goes past that I don't walk past my old high flat. And my mum's window boxes are still there, Frank, and I take the picture with the window box. Oh, I'm like, I'm welling up now. You put me under pressure with this, but definitely Clydebank.
Happy tears.
Happy tears.
So love it. The tap. I need to go and check out this Tap of the Hill.
Oh, it's the go-to destination for Scotland. I'm surprised it's not in the guidebooks.
We need to check it. We've actually got my wife's from Annie's Land, and she's got some connections in Drumchapel in Clydebank. Second question is, who inspires you the most, Alison?
Do you know what? So I talk about it in this book. Like loads of people will say, oh, you know, Lord Sugar, Richard Branson, blah, blah, blah. It's everyday people. My team, young people inspire me. Like that's one of the reasons I got up every morning, because they are just amazing. Like their mindset is brilliant. And even on the days that I don't dip very often, Frank, but when I'm put under, you know, writing a book or coming up with things, I just can't get my dyslexic head around it. I'll be like, no, you've got this, so they can mentor me. So young people, they get a bad reputation for being on their phones and having like fixed mindset and all that, but I find them amazing, and they make me feel like I'm 18. Do you know what I mean? So young people just in general inspire me, and they energize me, and they motivate me to keep going, because what I bring in my wisdom, they give me in the energy, and we feed off each other. So yeah,
what a compliment to your team, and what a compliment to that demographic. And I think anything we can do to support that young generation coming through, especially with our connections and our drive and our passion, I think is really important. So I think that's really powerful. And the last question, Alison, is what's the quote that you go to for some perspective when you're maybe feeling a bit crap, or you go to when you're feeling like, yeah, we've done this?
Well, all the time. Do you know, it's really funny because loads of people, I do Clubhouse in the mornings, Frank, and they're going, oh, they're quoting this person and that person. But again, the way that my dyslexia works, I can't really remember a lot of the quotes from books, or I've not really read any books and I just can't remember. But my one thing, and it just reminds me of my granny gardener, my wee granny with no teeth and 40 Benson and Hedges, you know, the fingers that were all yellow, and all granny would say anytime things weren't going right, you know, hen, what's for you, I'll no go by you. And that's the quote. I've even got it in my like downstairs loo. I've got a wee thing that says, what's for you, I'll no go by you. And I suppose it feeds into the same from the man at Glasgow airport. You know, that's Cape Town's gain and Glasgow's loss. It's the same thing, that it just keeps you going, that things like, you know, there are things that happen in life, pandemics, you know, things that happen that don't go according to plan, and you just get one foot in front of the other, and you set your wee goal every day and you do your best, and that is how you smash it.
That is how you smash it. What a great way to sum that up. Alison Edgar MBE, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. Great conversation. Thank you for pulling this book together and sharing all your thoughts. And get it the right way. Let's get it the right way. For sharing all your tools and your tips and your journey thus far, and how people can smash it. You can buy it in W. Smith, Amazon, bookstores. Support local bookstores, folks. Get it there. We'll share all the links on the YouTube and podcast narrative, and also how you can find out more about the work that Alison does. Alison, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thanks for making me greet and all. That's it. I've never been greeting in any podcast.
But you know what though? It's because we're allowing ourselves to be, we're in a safe place, and we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. And listen, if I was in your shoes and I was getting interviewed and I was talking about my wee granny from Dunmellington, who had 11 kids and who had 6 odd grandkids and who smoked about 80 Regal a day, I'd have shared a tear as well. So thanks for sharing that tear with me. Until next time, folks, please get this conversation out there. Check out Alison's work and absolutely get the book. Thanks for all your support with Forever Great in Conversation. Until we meet again, look after yourself and take care.